What if the biggest story coming out of Indiana Fever's latest win wasn't the game-winning shot, but what happened after it? Because sometimes the loudest confession isn't made in a press conference. It isn't leaked by an insider. It's hidden in plain sight on social media for millions to see. Welcome back to WNBA Vibe. Today we're diving into a controversy that has fans, analysts, and even league insiders asking some serious questions. A viral Instagram post, a sudden public reversal, and a sequence of events that has everybody wondering whether the truth got buried before it had a chance to breathe. Here's what makes this whole thing so wild. In today's world, damage control doesn't show up wearing a suit and carrying legal paperwork. It shows up as a social media correction that appears almost instantly after a post starts gaining traction. And when that correction directly clashes with what people already saw and heard, that's when the internet starts connecting dots. The Indiana Fever found themselves in a nail-biter after letting a huge lead slip away. One possession remained. One chance to save the game. The ball was inbounded, the defense shifted, and Sophie Cunningham made a decision that changed everything. Instead of what many believed was the original play design, she found Caitlin Clark wide open on the wing. Clark did what superstars do. Splash. Game over. Fever win. But that's when the Real story started. Fans immediately began breaking down every angle of the play. Was Kelsey Mitchell the first option? Did Sophie and Clark improvise in a clutch moment? Did the reaction on the sideline reveal more than anyone intended? Every frame got analyzed. Every detail got debated. And then Sophie Cunningham added fuel to the fire. In a celebratory Instagram post, buried among the photos and victory vibes, was a meme that hit the internet like a buzzer beater. The message, basically suggesting that the team may not have followed the original plan and that the improvisation paid off anyway. Whether Sophie created the meme or simply reposted it almost doesn't matter. The important part is that she chose to put it in front of her audience. And that's where things got interesting. Because veteran players understand exactly how social media works. They know what gets attention. They know what narratives take off. And when a player publicly embraces a message that seems to confirm what fans were already suspecting, people start asking questions. The question is whether Sophie was casually celebrating a clutch moment or unintentionally revealing something the organization never wanted discussed in public. And trust me, what happened next made this entire situation even crazier. Check this out. That was pretty revealing, wasn't it? And honestly, it only makes the timeline look even more interesting. Here's the part that fans can't stop talking about. Sophie Cunningham didn't accidentally stumble into this controversy. She saw the message, understood exactly what people would take from it, and still put it out there for the world to see. That's a veteran player making a conscious choice. And when you're dealing with a fan base that analyzes every possession, every interview, and every social media post, you know exactly what kind of conversation you're starting. What makes this even more fascinating is that Caitlin Clark reportedly interacted with the post as well. Think about that for a second. The superstar at the center of the entire discussion wasn't distancing herself from the narrative. If anything, the online activity suggested both players were completely aware of the conversation exploding around that game-winning sequence. But then the story took a sharp turn. Roughly 10 hours later, long after the screenshots were saved, long after clips had gone viral, and long after content creators had started breaking down every angle, Sophie suddenly appeared on X with a very different message. And it wasn't some casual clarification. It was an all-caps statement insisting that everyone was reading too much into the situation, and that the exact play drawn up by the coaching staff had been executed perfectly. Now that's where things start getting really interesting. Because timing matters. 10 hours is a long time in today's media cycle. That's enough time for a narrative to spread across the internet and gain serious traction. So when a correction arrives that much later, and arrives with that much urgency, people naturally start wondering what happened behind the scenes. Nobody can say for certain whether anyone from the organization reached out. Nobody can prove a phone call was made. But fans aren't reacting to proof. They're reacting to optics. And from the outside looking in, the sudden shift felt dramatic. Then came the biggest twist of all. Sophie's correction claimed the coach's play was executed exactly as designed. Sounds straightforward, right? Except there was one problem. Earlier, during the official post-game press conference, Stephanie White credited assistant coach Austin Kelly with drawing up the game-winning play. Now suddenly there are two versions of the story floating around. One account points to Austin Kelly. Another references our coach. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's simply wording. Maybe Sophie was referring to the entire coaching staff and fans are overanalyzing the language. But when a controversy is already raging and every word is being dissected, even the smallest inconsistency becomes a major talking point. And trust me, once people started comparing those statements side by side, the questions only got louder. Check this out. Now that clip right there is exactly why this debate refuses to die. Because here's the thing. Fans can accept mistakes. They can accept miscommunication. What they struggle to accept is confusion that keeps getting deeper every time someone tries to explain it. Let's be real for a second. When the average basketball fan hears the phrase, "Our coach drew up the play," they are not picturing an assistant standing in the background. They are thinking about the head coach. That's just how people naturally interpret it. And if the goal was absolute clarity, there were plenty of ways to be crystal clear. Instead, what fans got was language that seemed open to multiple interpretations. And whenever wording leaves room for interpretation during a controversy, people immediately start wondering why. Then another voice entered the conversation. Lexi Hull's reported comments added yet another layer to the story. According to reports circulating after the game, Hull praised Caitlin Clark's basketball IQ, talked about the read that led to the shot, and reportedly suggested she couldn't fully confirm that everything unfolded exactly as originally designed. There were also discussions about a possible foul drawing element being part of the possession. Now, whether every detail has been interpreted perfectly by the online community is one thing. But the bigger issue is perception. Because suddenly fans weren't hearing one version of events. They were hearing several. One account pointed toward Austin Kelly's role in designing the play. Another focused on the coaching staff executing the plan perfectly. A third seemed to leave room for the idea that players made an elite in-game read when the defense shifted. And once multiple versions start circulating, people naturally begin comparing them side by side. That's why the reaction online exploded so quickly. By the time Sophie's follow-up message appeared, many fans had already reached their own conclusions. They weren't looking for clarification anymore. They were looking for confirmation. So when the correction dropped, a huge portion of the basketball community didn't see it as the end of the story. They saw it as the beginning of a brand new chapter. The jokes started flying everywhere. Fans joked about emergency phone calls. They joked about damage control meetings. They joked about someone scrambling behind the scenes trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube. And while most of those comments were obviously made in fun, they revealed something important. A growing number of people simply weren't buying the official explanation. Whether that's fair or unfair is almost beside the point. Because once trust starts slipping, every future statement gets examined through a different lens. And that's where the broader conversation really begins. The Indiana Fever don't have a talent issue. Nobody questions the talent. The roster is loaded with competitors. The bigger question fans keep asking is whether the organization has done a good job controlling the message around its biggest moments. Because every controversy seems to create another controversy. Every explanation seems to generate another round of questions. And in today's social media era, that's a dangerous game. The internet never forgets. Screenshots live forever. Receipts travel faster than press releases. Meanwhile, through all the noise, all the speculation, and all the drama, one thing keeps happening over and over again. Caitlin Clark keeps delivering in clutch moments. And what happened after this latest game may have revealed even more about that reality than the shot itself. Check this out. That last clip says a lot, doesn't it? Because after all the noise, all the speculation, and all the social media chaos, we're still left staring at one simple reality. Caitlin Clark made the shot. And somehow, what should have been one of the Indiana Fever's best feel-good moments of the season turned into one of the most talked-about controversies in the league. Now let's make one thing clear. Sophie Cunningham isn't the villain in this story. If anything, she's become one of the most fascinating figures in the entire situation. Whether the play unfolded exactly as designed or whether an elite basketball read changed everything in real time, Sophie stepped up in a clutch moment and delivered when her team needed her most. That's what competitors do. The bigger question isn't about Sophie. The bigger question is why a game-winning moment somehow evolved into a debate about conflicting narratives, confusing explanations, and social media damage control. Because look at the sequence. The Fever win the game. A viral post sparks conversation. The internet starts breaking down the play. Different explanations begin circulating. Then a correction appears that only fuels even more questions. That's not how organizations maximize good publicity. That's how organizations accidentally create controversy where they didn't need to be any. And through all of it, Caitlin Clark keeps doing what superstars do. She keeps showing up. She keeps delivering in the clutch. She keeps carrying the weight of expectations while the spotlight around her gets brighter every single week. That's why this story resonates with so many fans. It's bigger than one possession. It's bigger than one Instagram post. It's bigger than one all-caps message. For a lot of people, this has become a conversation about trust, communication, and whether fans are getting the full story when major moments happen behind the scenes. At the end of the day, the Fever had every reason to be celebrating. Sophie Cunningham made a clutch red. Caitlin Clark knocked down a cold-blooded shot. The team got the win. That should have been the headline. Instead, the basketball world spent the next 24 hours debating what really happened. And that's why this story refuses to go away. Now I want to hear from you. Did the original post reveal more than it was supposed to? Was the follow-up clarification completely genuine? Or do you think fans are reading way too much into the entire situation? Drop your take in the comments right now, because this debate is far from over, and the smartest basketball conversations always happen down there. And if you made it all the way to the end, that tells me you're not a casual fan. You're the kind of basketball junkie who loves digging deeper than the headlines and finding the story behind the story. So make sure you smash that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join the WNBA Vibe community today. Because while everyone else is chasing the next viral headline, we're breaking down what it actually means. Until next time, keep it locked right here on WNBA Vibe. And remember, the most interesting part of the game isn't always what happens on the court. Sometimes it's what happens after the final buzzer.